Before the moon learned to guard the night, before magic carried a name, a lone figure walked the borders no god dared to claim. She moved where worlds touched, carrying fire through the dark, watching every path the living and the dead would someday cross. She was not born to rule, she was born to reveal. Her name was Hecate. Welcome back to Legends Reborn, and thank you for the overwhelming support on these journeys into the forgotten depths of myth. Each story we uncover opens the door to another, and tonight we step into a realm shaped by shadow, fire, and the thin spaces between worlds. Many of you remember the deep dive I made on Persephone, a story where Hecate appears only for a moment, a flash of torchlight in the darkness. But that brief appearance hides a far older truth. Because Hecate is more than a guide in a single myth. She is a goddess whose origins stretch beyond Greece, beyond Olympus, into lands where magic and boundary were the same word. Tonight, we return to her forgotten beginnings, the Hecate born from starlight and silence, honored by Zeus, and later transformed into the guardian of Crossroads and restless spirits. This is the Hecate most people never meet, and this is her full legend. She was born from forces that rarely touch the mortal world. Long before the Olympians carved their thrones into the sky, before the great epics shaped the order of gods and men, a child emerged from Perses, a being tied to destruction, and Asteria, the drifting brilliance of the night. Their daughter carried both shadow and starlight, a presence that belonged not to a single realm, but to all of them. Hesiod wrote of her with a reverence unusual for a Titanide, calling her powerful in sky, sea, and earth. And even Zeus, who feared the old Titan blood, honored her with gifts untouched by war or conquest. This was the first Hecate, vast, cosmic, untouched by dread. She stood beside fishermen in moonlit waters, guided warriors through uncertain nights, protected children whose path had only just begun. She was never a goddess of terror. She was a goddess of reach, watching over thresholds no mortal could name, present wherever a life paused between one moment and the next. But the world changes, and so do its gods. As human stories grew, new meanings gathered around her name. The Greeks placed her at the boundaries they feared most: crossroads, doorways, the edges of forests where the night pressed too close. She became the watcher of transitions, the presence that saw every choice, every turning, every uncertain footstep. And while other gods ruled with authority, Hecate moved in silence. Her power came not from dominion, but from understanding. She knew what lay behind each path and what would rise to meet those who walked it. Her symbols emerged from that role. Two torches held in steady hands, not to blind the dark or push it back, but to reveal what lived within it. Keys at her side to unlock the places others were forbidden to enter. Dogs that sensed her arrival long before human eyes could catch the shimmer of her presence. Snakes curling at her feet, embodying the quiet process of renewal. Everything about her pointed toward those moments when a person stands suspended between what was and what must come next. It is in that light that the myth of Persephone offers its brief but telling glimpse of her. When Hades pulled the young goddess beneath the earth, it was Hecate who heard the cry that no other deity seemed willing to acknowledge. She walked with Demeter through the night, her torches guiding the desperate search. Later, when Persephone rose and descended with the turning of the seasons, Hecate walked beside her, not as ruler, not as servant, but as the one who understood the weight of returning and the cost of leaving. Even here, she does not dominate the tale. She supports its truth. And for those who want the deeper telling of Persephone's journey, I have already covered her full story on this channel. Yet, Hecate's myth does not rest in moments. It rests in her form, one that shifted with time. As Greek art evolved, she appeared not as a single figure, but as three. One facing the path behind, one facing the path ahead, and one standing in the present moment of choice. Some saw in this a union of Selene in the heavens, Artemis upon the earth, and Hecate in the underworld. Others understood it as a reflection of human experience itself, the past that shapes us, the future that calls us, and the trembling balance point between them. This triform image did not make her darker, it made her larger. Her presence stretched across realms, across moments, across the quiet corners of human life, where no clear answer could be found. She was invoked at thresholds and crossroads not because she frightened, but because she recognized the weight of a decision and the courage it took to take even one step forward. Stories about her seldom followed the structure of hero and quest. She had no singular epic, no grand rivalry, no war that defined her. Instead, she appeared when the borders thinned, when a dream crossed into waking, when a traveler hesitated at a fork in the road, when a newborn entered the world, or a soul prepared to leave it. She was the presence that moved alongside people in the moments they feared most, not to command or punish, but to reveal. And that is why the ancient world revered her, not simply as a goddess of magic, though that mantle would cling to her in later ages, but as the guide who understood how fragile the boundary between worlds could be. Her torches burned not with violence, but with clarity. Her dogs did not attack, they warned. Her keys did not lock, they opened. This was the Hecate the early Greeks knew, a titanide who crossed cosmic borders without losing her grace, a goddess who lived between realms yet remained untouched by corruption or cruelty, a figure who walked ahead of all who wandered, illuminating the path not to dictate their fate, but to help them see where it would lead. And from this ancient form, her darker, more mysterious image would later grow, shaped by shifting cultures, changing rituals, and the shadows cast by human imagination. But the foundation remained the same. She was the one who moved where others could not, the one who held the light when the world fell into silence. As the myths evolved, Hecate did not diminish. She changed. And with every transformation, she stepped closer to the figure we recognize today. The guardian of crossroads, the keeper of transitions, the whisper in the night that calls not toward destruction, but toward understanding. The myths the Greeks preserved show a Hecate who moves through shadows with her torches raised, a guide who walks between the living and the dead. But the truth beneath those stories stretches far beyond Olympus. To understand what she really was, and what she became, we have to follow the trail of her worship backward into lands whose names have nearly slipped from memory. Long before Greek poets placed her beside Persephone or carved her image into Crossroads, Hecate may have belonged to Anatolia, a region where gods were shaped not by epic warfare, but by the slow turning of the earth and the rhythm of night. Scholars have traced her earliest presence to Caria, a coastal land where a powerful goddess guarded thresholds, sanctuaries, and the uncertain spaces between. When the Greeks adopted her, they did not diminish her. They lifted her into their cosmos, letting Hesiod portray her with honors great enough to match the older reverence she clearly already commanded. This blending of cultures explains why her mythology feels fragmented. She did not originate from the same narrative soil as Hera, Athena, or Apollo. She was carried into their world, already ancient, already complex, and reshaped to fit a new divine order. And through that process, she evolved. In the Archaic period, she remained a beneficent titanide, cosmic, far-reaching, honored for her protective influence. Temples stood at the edges of cities, marking the boundary between safety and the unknown. Travelers left offerings for her before they crossed into unfamiliar territory. Women invoked her during childbirth, seeking her presence at one of life's most vulnerable thresholds. Even the ocean, with all its uncertainty, was part of her domain. But as Greek culture shifted, so did the meaning of her light. In the classical era, as tragedy and philosophy began to examine the darker corners of human experience, Hecate found herself drawn into the night. Crossroads, places long seen as spiritually charged, became her sacred terrain. People claimed to hear dogs howl when she passed. Offerings were left where three paths met, not out of fear, but out of respect for the power she carried in those liminal spaces. She did not punish those who crossed her path. She made them aware of the threshold they had stepped upon. Through the Hellenistic age, her image deepened again. The world was expanding, cultures blending, and the boundaries between myth and ritual grew fluid. Hecate became a guide through the underworld, a guardian of necromantic rites, a presence invoked in whispered ceremonies. Artists shaped her into a three-bodied figure, each face turned toward a different direction. Not a monstrous form, but a visual truth. For a goddess who ruled transitions, one body was never enough. By the time the Roman world took hold, she had become inseparable from ritual magic itself. In the Greek magical papyri, her name appears as a key, a word spoken not to command harm, but to open the boundary between the mundane and the hidden. Practitioners called on her as the one who stands where reality bends, where spirits move, where knowledge does not reveal itself easily. They sought her presence not to summon darkness, but to navigate it. Yet, despite these transformations, she never became a goddess of malice. Even in her most fearsome depictions, Hecate remained a guardian, stern at times, mysterious at others, but always connected to guidance rather than destruction. The night she walked through was not a place of punishment. It was the landscape of truth. Her cult reflected that understanding. Every new moon, households carried food to Crossroads in a ritual known as Hecate's Diaphnon, offering meals not only to her, but to the restless spirits who gathered near the threshold of the month. Terracotta figures of her form were placed at doorways, not to ward off life, but to protect it. Keys were worn as charms, symbolizing her ability to unlock hidden knowledge. And in some traditions, black dogs accompanied her, loyal, alert, woven into the silence just beyond the lantern light. Modern interpretations have embraced these older layers, revealing a Hecate who resonates with people navigating the shadows of their own lives. In Wicca and neo-paganism, she embodies the triple goddess, maiden, mother, and wise woman, echoing her ancient three-formed image. She stands as a symbol of intuition, transformation, and the unseen work of healing. Psychologically, she becomes the guide who appears when someone reaches a turning point, offering not escape, but clarity. Spiritually, she represents the courage to walk through dark seasons and emerge with new understanding. But her deeper identity reaches even further, because Hecate belongs to a lineage that spans continents, a legacy of goddesses who ruled the spaces between life and silence. Across ancient cultures, a certain presence returns again and again, a feminine power standing where endings lean into beginnings. Hecate belongs to that lineage, yet she is not its only face. In distant lands, Kali took that role. In the cold nights of the north, Hulda guided wandering souls. I touched on this pattern in my last video about the Norse goddess Hel, and while researching Hecate, I began to see how deeply these stories intertwine. Let me know in the comments what you make of that, and whether these hidden connections surprise you as much as they did me. So, what does Hecate truly represent beneath every transformation, every myth, every fragment shaped by time? She embodies the crossroads within the human spirit, the moment when a person stands on the edge of change and cannot return to what they were. She is not the force that pushes, nor the force that blocks. She is the presence that holds the lantern until the choice becomes clear. She teaches that transitions are not punishments, they are invitations. That standing between worlds is not a curse, it is a moment of becoming. Hecate does not demand devotion. She asks only for awareness, for courage, for the willingness to step forward even when the path is veiled. And that is why her story endures, because every life reaches a threshold. Every soul walks through darkness. Every journey waits for the moment when light reveals what must be faced. Hecate is not the shadow. She is the flame that teaches you how to move through it. This has been Legends Reborn, a place where ancient voices still move beneath the surface of our modern world. If Hecate's story moved you, or revealed something you hadn't seen before, I'd love to hear your thoughts. And if there's a detail I overlooked, a version, a fragment, a memory from the older texts that deserves its place in this telling, let me know. Your insight shapes how these myths continue to breathe. And if there is another forgotten figure you want to see illuminated, a name buried in shadow, waiting for her story to rise again, feel free to share this in the comments. Your voice guides the path we take next. So, thank you for walking this crossroads with me. Until the next story, may her torch keep your way steady.